Hello and welcome. You're watching FII. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. Today on the program, we will be decoding what is now known as the vaccine economy. What do I mean by that? Well, it is understanding why is it that the same vaccine from the same brand of pharmaceutical company is costing differently depending on which country you are and what bargain you're able to strike with that pharma company. Is that good, bad, outright ugly? That's something in this explainer. So India now has not one but two COVID vaccines, huge relief and a New Year bonanza. Now the focus has to shift on how do we get enough vaccinations available for a country of our size and how much will it cost? Now you would think that COVID has been such a leveler, a global pandemic impacted one and all. So the vaccine should be rolled out and made available at least in the same fashion. Reality check, that's far from what's happening across the globe and what's now come to be known as the vaccine economy. Did you know that the same brand of vaccines cost differently across the globe? Now this has been a suspicion by activists for quite some time, but turned into a reality in the December of 2020, when an insider from the Belgium government leaked the rates at which European Union procured vaccines from various pharma companies. The tweet was later pulled down, but it lifted the veil on one of the worst kept secrets on vaccine pricing. The leaked document made it very clear that the European Union paid substantially lower prices than United States for the same drug from the same pharma company. So we pulled out some data, and this is an example that we pulled out for you. We've taken up Oxford since it now had clearance in India as well. So 2 jabs of Oxford vaccine cost $2.16 in European Union, $4 in United States, and a little over $5 here in India. And that is said to be a discounted rate for the government. If you want to get yourself vaccinated and procure the vaccination privately, it would cost up to 2,000 rupees or roughly about $27. A little caveat over here is that the Indian government has not made these figures public. So the price quoted here is what has been claimed so far by the serum head Adar Poonawalla. Bottom line, however, here is why are some countries getting the vaccine cheaper than the others? I'm sure the question on your mind is that, is it fair? Why does it happen? Why is it that some countries get a better rate than the other? The important background to know here is from what happened in October of 2020. It was a landmark move where India and South Africa raised the issue of price parity, or the lack of it in this case, and asked the World Trade Organization to make sure that countries do not grant patents and other intellectual property related to COVID-19. Till the point that there is a global herd immunity which is achieved in this case. Now, what are these patents and global and sort of intellectual properties here? These are secret tech and information about the development of the vaccine that is in the hands of few, thus creating monopoly. A monopoly that allows pharmaceutical corporations to keep the prices artificially high. Now, historically, steps have been taken to overcome monopolies. For example, in 2001, at the height of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, measures were taken to eliminate patents and other barriers, putting governments in the driver's seat so they can prioritize public health over corporate interests. The current waiver request from India and South Africa to the WTO is a similar step to sort of speed up the cure for COVID-19. India has proposed that the World Trade Organization waive off protections on intellectual property, allowing poorer countries to make affordable versions of the same vaccine. Will that happen? Well, for that, it's important to understand how the WTO functions. Now, decisions here are taken on the basis of consensus. The COVID proposal has been blocked by United States, by Britain, by European Union, where pharmaceutical companies yield a huge amount of political influence. Now, have you connected the dots here yet? The same countries, remember, who are getting the vaccine at a much cheaper rate are blocking the move to make sure the vaccine is not made much more affordable for poorer countries. The industry argues that patent protections and the profits they derive from it are requirements for innovation that yields to life-saving medicines as well. However, the question is Is this time to profit? And what impact will it have on our nations? If masses of people in poor countries do not gain access to vaccine, their economies will take longer to return to normal, ending in later recovery of economy. In a world that is shaped by inequality, at the moment, growth can coincide with inequity. All right, now that we've understood that, let's take it forward with our panelists today. We've got Leena Ginge joining us from the Doctors Without Borders. She is a global intellectual property advisor over there. We have Sujata Roy, very happy to have her, former Secretary for Health in the Government of India. We've got Malini joining us. She's the co-convener, All India Drug Action Network. Lots of inputs from her as well is what we're looking for. And then we've got Professor Dr. Anita Ramesh, specialist in clinical trials as well. Welcome to the program, ladies. Very happy to have an all-women panel here at the moment talk about this very permanent issue. Leena, I have to begin by giving you the first word. I understand that Doctors Without Borders have been petitioning for this world over for quite some time. Explain to our viewers, why is it so important that there is price parity when it comes to a life-saving drug in midst of a pandemic that has impacted the entire globe?
Well, it's based on our experience of treating millions of patients and procuring medicines and vaccines from India and other parts of the world from pharma companies. There has been several attempts by pharmaceutical corporations to charge very high prices in the midst of epidemics. The HIV/AIDS epidemic is a classic example where Pfizer charged astronomical prices for fluconazole, and a lot of South Africans lost their lives. And using that experience, the South African government, for example, has been one of the proposers at the WTO, that they don't want a repeat of what happened with the HIV/AIDS epidemic. They want countries to be able to cope with the pandemic and be able to manufacture and scale up all the tools we need, not just vaccines, but diagnostics, drugs, and other devices that you would need to cope with the COVID-19 vaccine. So we've learned the hard way that pharmaceutical corporations overcharge, often at the cost of patients, and that leads to rationing, and that would be better avoided through the proposal being passed by members of the WTO.
Right. So Malini, could you explain to us what's the way forward here then? What's the solution that we're looking at?
So I'll just add to what Leena said. So as I've said before, there are many different factors in when we are discussing the price of vaccines. This would depend on the number of vaccines that have been approved, the number of manufacturers that are involved in making of those vaccines, and also variations in terms of the technology platforms in which these vaccines are based. And ideally, the government should have the ability to enlist more manufacturers in order to increase competition, which would lead to a decline in the prices. Yes, as Leena has mentioned, this pandemic is not the time for corporations to be overcharging and overpricing the vaccines. We're already seeing some indications of that at the moment. But as more vaccine candidates get approved and we see more manufacturers also engaged in manufacturing, making those vaccines available, we expect that there would be a decline in the prices. And the government also has another role which it is playing at the moment, which is of providing funding towards enabling the development of various candidates. The Indian government has, put out quite large allocations, most recently of 900 crores, and prior to that also in the vicinity of more than 200 crores. And this is all going towards supporting very promising candidates, and there are numerous Indian companies that are involved in developing these different candidates. So we're very hopeful that if all things go well in the next few months, we'll see more vaccines getting approved.
Right. In fact, just to add for our viewers over there, what Malini is saying is very significant. There is a huge chunk of money, of public money, of taxpayers' money that has already gone in ways of funds to all these pharma companies to sort of develop and catapult their way when it comes to doing R&D on these vaccines. So there is a lot of money money that has already gone into this. So there is no way that the companies should be charging sort of overpricing or raising the bar on this one as well. I want to bring in Sujata Rao over here. Ma'am, we look at a situation where at this point we know that India and South Africa have petitioned to the WTO. To anybody understanding how the vaccine economy works, the obvious question is, why isn't the world stepping up?
Well, there are two points, and since you raised HIV, I'll just take a minute to explain what happened then. As you may recall, in 2000, the companies are willing to give the HIV drugs. There's no vaccine for HIV. The drugs at $1 a day. But even that $1 a day was a lot of money. They came down from $12,000 they came a year to $1 a day, which is $365, which we could not afford, and millions in the world lost their lives. It was CIPLA, it was not the government. It was CIPLA which then took it upon itself to manufacture the drugs and offer it at 150 or I think 200 rupees, which is about $4 per year, and that crashed the whole price structure, and India and the millions who are saved today is largely because of what CIPLA did. So,
wow, so it was a corporate decision, you're saying?
Yes, it was CIPLA's concept of social responsibility, which he took that drug, he manufactured the drug, and he offered it at a rock bottom price of $4 a year from 12,000, or maybe something like that. I don't remember. Maybe $100 a year. Whatever it was. It just crashed the prices so much that India, we got it, I'm getting confused with the dollars, but say we used to buy it at 140 rupees for the year and export it to more than 45 countries. The HIV drugs were exported and millions of lives. Now, the patent business, the IPR does allow country upon country to have a public emergency, to declare a public emergency and see that the price control is levied. So it's not as if countries are helpless, they can do it. But the private companies structure their costs based on, most of research in US is also publicly funded. It is NIH research, then is taken upon by the manufacturers and they develop the drug or they develop the vaccine based on
Even in India, for example, ICMR has been doing a lot of clinical trials, even for the Serum Institute vaccine.
Yes. So, there is a public investment there, but the private companies then actually manufacture, so they pile in the manufacturing cost, and almost 40% of the pricing is on the PR that they do. PR meaning not public relations, but the advertising, it's a very, very competitive world. So that's where they spend. So therefore, there's differential pricing because what they can charge in America is not, there won't be a market in India. So there is a differential pricing between countries is a known fact for every drug, every vaccine and everything. Now, how have we been able to access vaccines is in two ways. One is that there is a global tender that used to be floated by UNICEF for, say, the polio vaccines and other childhood vaccines, and they beat the companies to a rock bottom price. Hepatitis B, for example, when the first time we entered, it was 700 rupees a dose. It was brought to less than 100 rupees in India.
Oh, interesting.
Bulk procurement. When Indian market steps in, it's huge. It is in millions of doses, So the prices really crash down and you get a huge advantage of price. Because of the market that we provide. The second is Gavi enters into several of these manufacturing companies and buys up upfront and tries to negotiate the prices for the poorer countries. So this is some kind of equity is maintained globally. Now in India, we are in a different footing. We have the great advantage of having excellent state-of-the-art vaccine manufacturers. We are one of the best in the world. And both Bharat Biotech, Serum, Panacea, Zydus, all these people will, believe me, come up with an excellent vaccine. I give them the time and stop bugging them and stop politicizing them. And they will come up with an excellent vaccine. I have that faith in, say, in about 4 months.
So you think India could provide a solution for the world?
No, let's start ourselves at home. And it will be such a competitive environment that Indian government will have a strong footing to really bargain their prices down to a very affordable price, you know. And they will look for, but there again, they will probably ask for some space to be left for being able to commercially sell the vaccine so that they can make up they do cross subsidization. See, the government will want to buy it at 10 rupees, but these people can't, they have had some real costs. So they'll want to price it to 20 rupees for somebody like me who cannot pay it because they have to recover costs.
Can I just interrupt there for a minute and let me bring in the doctor on the panel here as well. I just wanted to understand from you, Dr. Renita. So isn't the heart of the issue here transparency? Let's have it, a global tender obviously is a great option. On the other hand, there should be transparency to how much cost has gone into it and how much is the profiteering margin here.
Yes, you are right. The same thing happens in the oncology. I'll just give you a little background what happens in cancer drugs. Cancer drug runs in lakhs. A 1 month dose can be in lakhs when we talk about immunotherapy. We talk about the targeted drugs, okay? And these drugs are sometimes manufactured outside the country in US and it's exorbitantly priced. There is also a differential pricing for India. They try to give some free vials so the cost may come down. So that is called patency, and patency sometimes patent lasts for 2 to 3 years, and that is the time high cost of all the cancer drugs. It runs in lakhs a month or more than 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs a month. So until and unless this patency is over, then we have many good Indian companies who are able to manufacture this drug. The drug cost crashes. If it is a 1 lakh cost, we get it at 3,000, 4,000. That's the huge margin. And as far as India is concerned, we have very good pharmaceutical companies. We have vaccine manufacturers. We need to manufacture the whole thing in India and the cost comes down. And that's what happens now. Oncology drugs, most of them are manufactured in India for the people, and no Indian is deprived of the best to the best drugs.
Right.
Same thing should happen with vaccine.
Yeah, one more. Let's let it finish.
Yeah, same thing should happen with vaccine. Now, Indian manufacturers, Serum Institute, and I appreciate them, and India is the largest manufacturer. Now, all the big bodies in the world should come together, and I know they have put in huge amount of money as R&D, which is a public fund. Plus, they should keep a margin, and in the pandemic, nobody should try to make huge money out of it and give it at very low cost to the general population.
But is that happening?
Now, if you see... Yeah, it will happen, because yesterday what we heard that he's giving it to the government at around 250 rupees, to the public at 1,000. We can also again negotiate it. The price can come down. And Covaxin has not come with the price. It can come a little. And I think it's the cheapest rate quoted in the world, because I went through the prices across Moderna, Pfizer, all of them are above $20 for the 2 doses.
The current comparison that we've done on the Oxford vaccine at least says that you got it at much cheaper rate than India also. What is being proposed at the moment. Yes. I have to slip into a very quick break. I'll come back, and I'll come back to Sujata Roy. I see her hand going up on the other side of this very quick break. Welcome back. So, should the intellectual property and patents on vaccine being developed against coronavirus, should that be in the hands of the few, or this one time it should be distributed and the world should be seen as one? Well, that's what we are discussing here on FII. Let me go back to Sujata Roy, who was making some very interesting comments on this. Sujata, please go ahead.
No, what I was just saying was, I find even 200 rupees that Serum announced very high for purchase. I would imagine that given the huge market that government is doing such a bulk purchase, it should be not more than 50 rupees is my guess. But certainly, I mean, if I compare to the other vaccines, childhood vaccines that are being bought, and given the size of the market now for this, it should not really be more than 50. So I have a feeling government will definitely negotiate and bargain with Serum much more. And you know, particularly because they've not finished their phase 3 trials. They're just taking data of expenditures incurred in UK and other countries and taking that data, and on that basis they've got the license to sell. So they have not really incurred the costs, and I don't see why government should pay 200. But and then even in the open market, the differential should not be so high as 200 and 1,000, because not only black marketing can take place, but more importantly, it's too much. We've had a huge economic decline. I think government should intervene to see that the prices are far more reasonable.
Well,
so
pricing of the vaccine altogether in India has been extremely opaque. We don't know what's happening. The only thing we've heard so far from Serum Institute is from Adar himself, from the head of the company. The government hasn't made anything public. Even, in fact, it's not just an India-centric problem, it's a world-over problem. It took somebody sitting in the Belgium government to leak out, to sort of get this word out that, listen, this is what is happening, for the world to actually take notice. That's what happened here.
Absolutely.
And Alina, come in on the point that even when it comes to a free vaccine, say today what is being pegged and has been promised so far by the government, that there will be free vaccinations given out, at the end of the day, that is taxpayers' money which is being used for it.
Yeah, so I think the couple of points on this issue is that there are very specific non-disclosure clauses in agreements that companies sign. So, for example, Serum Institute hasn't been particularly transparent about the agreement it signed with AstraZeneca. And one of the key questions that Indians today should be asking is why only Serum Institute, the only one with the rights to produce this vaccine? Why can't other manufacturers come into the market? That's one. Number two is this, I would like to highlight that, what the doctor really said, that, in cancer, what happens? You have a drug like dasatinib, or you have a drug called trastuzumab. I have had friends pass away from breast cancer waiting for the drugs. So you wait almost a decade for patents to expire while you watch your friends and family pass away or sell the entire assets to get access to cancer drugs. Now, what South Africa and India have done, they said, well, we can't really wait for that. If tomorrow you have a new drug that actually works for COVID-19, or we have better tests, we can't really wait for the patents to expire and companies to be charitable to us.
Right.
What we really need is something that does not stop our companies or stop our manufacturers or stop the capacity of the developing world to highlight that from producing
Malini,
them without worrying about patents.
I mean, there seems to be no other side to this argument, really. I don't think anybody on the basis of this is going to say no, continue to sort of create monopoly when it comes to vaccination against COVID-19. But is there no world body regulator who's overseeing these things, who can weigh in at least in an issue like this?
So you've asked a very interesting question. So one thing, India and South Africa are gaining momentum. They are countries who are coming forward to support India and South Africa. The countries who are not supporting India and South Africa have traditionally backed their own pharmaceutical corporations. Now, if you look at the European Union or you look at Switzerland, Novartis sued the government of India for 7 long years to protect its patent monopolies in India. So the history of these countries has been to go with the pharmaceutical industry. So it's not a surprise that they are
opposing the proposal. And it's not changed even in the pandemic. I quickly want to give Malini a word on this as well. Malini.
So I'll just add, I think Leena has explained it quite well. In addition to that, I think we've been talking quite a lot about patents, but in addition to that, what is also very important to consider are the factors of know-how and technology transfer. So without these aspects also, it's not really possible for other companies to be able to manufacture the vaccines. And in the Indian context specifically, we feel like the government might have more of a role to be able to facilitate getting more companies to be able to make, to step in and start manufacturing. Also, like for example, in the case of Bharat Biotech, there is an agreement with that company. We don't know, for instance, if the government has retained any rights in order to transfer the technology, to other companies. And so this is important. I also would say that I agree very much with Dr. Sujata Rao on the price of Serum's vaccine and the price that they are willing to offer to the government. I also feel it's very high. It should be much lower, and certainly we'll end up paying otherwise exactly what the Europeans are paying. And
ladies, I'm out of time, so I'll leave it there for the moment. But I started the program by saying, is this really time to profit? I don't think it's a question anymore. This is no time to profit. And what are the countries doing? That's something we have to keep a very close eye on. That's it on FII today. Tomorrow when we meet at 7:30, we'll be talking about the all-important issue of bird flu that's taken over. That's coming up tomorrow.